My name is Shreyans Mehta, co-founder and CTO at Cequence Security. But before I start off, a big thank you to Descope for hosting this, and also excited to partner with them for this hackathon. For people who don't know about Cequence, we started as an application and API protection company. We process more than 10 billion API requests every day, and helping enterprises for multiple things around apps and APIs, ranging from cataloging their APIs, what do they do, what risks do they pose, and then ultimately protect those applications from abuse, business logic abuse, primarily from bots. And fast forward in the new world, we're in the world of agents, everything is a bot. So that's about Cequence. So as we talk to our customers, right, like our existing customers, new customers, right, they are in the business of building bots, building agents, right, and starting from various different use cases. Some are internal use cases, enabling marketing team, enabling development teams, enabling the CFO to access certain kinds of data. Some are talking about enabling customer interactions, right? It could be customer support. It could be buying stuff using an agent, right? They want to avoid this user to go to a store, and if they can do that entire interaction for complex use cases, when I'm, let's say, upgrading a phone plan, I'm looking for a special shirt with a specific spec, right? All of that, if I can avoid going to a store, that's what I want to do, right? Now, so all these cases, there are various different things that you're going through, right? You have an access to an agent, right? I mean, Crew AI, LangChain, Claude, right? When you're building these agents, you also have to worry about which LLM to use, right? And these are open source models, paid models, but trained on public data sets, right? But what makes your use case unique is access to your data. And that access comes through MCP servers, right? So effectively, that's all three things coming together is what everybody is actually building, right? So when you're enabling this for the enterprise, you run through various different challenges, right? I think somebody spoke about to enable my data for my agent, where do I get the MCP server from, right? I mean, there are thousands of MCP servers available, right? But they're mostly for public use. I don't know if I can even trust them because they're not official MCP servers, right? And then I have tens of thousands of internal applications that I want to enable for agentic interaction. Like one of our customers is just enabling more than 25,000 internal apps to all their developers for agentic use, right? But like now suddenly people are not going to start building MCP servers for each of those applications, right? Like it's going to take them weeks, months, and sometimes even years for the scale at which people are thinking about enabling stuff, right? If I go outside for public apps, like I think there was a discussion earlier, like Slack and others are not even launching their official MCP servers because of monetization issue and other use cases. And then there are others where rolling out MCP servers is part of their roadmap, but there are other things taking priority, right? So in those cases, now you have to rely on some open source stuff or things that you can't trust, but your data actually needs to flow through it. So like enterprises are looking to quickly enable and safely enable their applications for agentic use. So that's the number one challenge that we see in the enterprise, right? Like the second aspect is, again, I was having a discussion earlier with someone where most of the MCP servers that are in open source community are for personal use, right? That means I'm running it locally on my laptop. I'm running in a very specific environment, and I'm the user of that MCP server. So I can give it kind of the God mode access that I have, and I'm fine with it. But when you go to an enterprise, right, that agent is either going to have its own identity or it's going to assume the identity of the user to work on it, on the data that is behind it, right? When I'm the CFO of the organization, I'm accessing the numbers of sales and other things, the other user should not have access to it. So being able to have that scope around things, like what Rishi was talking about, is extremely important, right? The third aspect is day two, right? When I've rolled out the MCP server, the agent has access to it, but what happens when the agent goes rogue for any reason, right? Think about, we were talking about prompt injection earlier, right? There have been real-world use cases where I think the GitHub MCP server vulnerability, right? I would actually call it an exploit than a vulnerability, but it was actually coerced using prompt injection to expose private repo data out to the public, right? And it's because prompts, will come in from various different places. What the user provides, what you have actually committed in the repository, other data sources that it's referring to, it's combining all of that, and then it is going to do things based on that, right? But ultimately, your data is impacted. It could be about an agent gone rogue where it's actually fetching a file from SharePoint, emailing it, fetching it, emailing it, whatever, right? Like if you're doing it 1,000 times, it's exfiltration of data. It could be about a use case about online shopping. When I'm trying a gift card once or twice, it's all fine. But if I can coerce an agent to try out thousands and tens of thousands of gift card numbers, it's actually a gift card fraud that I'm doing, right? It's all about hallucinating the LLM has hallucinating what it's actually doing. It's about prompt injection in various different ways. But ultimately, your data is getting exploited, right? So continuous monitoring and visibility is the day two part. Again, the enterprises need, because you might build an agent today, but once you go to the security team, how do I convince them that this is safe to use in my environment? So these are the three AI adoption challenges that we are seeing in all enterprises. So this is where Cequence AI Gateway comes in, right? So Cequence AI Gateway is effectively MCP servers sitting between your agent and your applications, right? And you might have your LLM going through a separate gateway, but we are actually enabling the access to your data, your actions, whatever apps you already had in place. It could be your SaaS apps, right? It could be Salesforce, it could be Slack, it could be whatever applications that is out there. There might be an existing server, but there might be others that you don't have an MCP server for. It's enabling access to your internal applications, right? Anything that has an API that can be translated into an MCP server, we become that translation layer in that setup. So that's what effectively Cequence AI Gateway is. So what we are doing with the Cequence AI Gateway is like an easy button to enable for your agents, right? With a flip of switch, literally no coding needed, right? You can take an internal or an external application and then make it AI ready, because we will translate from MCP to API for you, right? Effectively, right? So you might have an internal app. If you have a spec for it, or if not, we can have you create a spec, and that can become a starting point. And we'll run through a little demo of that setup as well, right? Second big discussion was about access control, right? Like providing agent the identity, the APIs access your applications in a certain way, right? But it's not about the user kind of transitioning its identity to the agent. You want to give the agent a subset of that access, right? If I, as a user, I'm able to read emails, send my emails, but to the agent, I might only allow it to read emails, summarize it for me, not allow it to send or delete emails. So how can I do it at the enterprise scale, not at the single MCP, local MCP server, right? So that's the second thing that we do, all plug and play in that setup, right? And the third part is real-time monitoring, right? When you are actually developing your agent, number one part, right? I should be able to see all agent interactions with your data. And it might not be just one MCP server. It might be the agent interactions from, okay, like I gave the SharePoint example, SharePoint to email to Slack. What all interactions is this particular agent doing? Is this particular user doing, right? At the development time for debugging purposes, and then when I switch to production mode, at runtime for any time when the agent goes rogue, I should be able to trace what really happened. I should be able to put a stop on an abuse when it will potentially happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? And that's where our roots around business logic abuse, fraud detection, for bot protection actually come in. So all of this in a simple, easy box, right? At enterprise scale, it can be deployed in our SaaS environment. You can deploy it on-prem, but effectively wherever your data is. Right? So that's what Cequence AI Gateway brings to the table. With that, I'll do a short demo. Hopefully it works in this. I did not risk a live setup like my friend earlier. So we had a recorded demo here. Let's see if it works. So what we're doing here is starting with creating an MCP server. And then the next steps will be to actually use it in the real live environment, right? So in this case, this is our AI Gateway portal where you can create MCP servers for your enterprise. As part of the hackathon, you get access to this as well. We have an app catalog of tons of applications, public apps that are out there. You can search an app that you would like to create an MCP server for, and then walk through the steps of creating that MCP server, right? In this particular case, we are creating an app for SharePoint. You can enable, disable at the tool level, API level, what you want to expose through that MCP server, right? The next thing that you do is I'm rolling this out in a development mode or in a production mode. Development gives you a lot more tracing, logging, and things like that. And then where do you actually want to roll this out? And the last aspect is, do you want to actually enable security guardrails, right? Choose your authentication. We support OAuth. If you have your backend APIs are API key driven at the org level, at the user level, we support that as well. You can set your scopes that I only want to provide read-only access to my SharePoint. I don't want to allow files access. You can set all of that here. That's about it, right? I mean, these are the steps. You create and deploy. Within minutes, you'll have an MCP server ready to go. Right? Now, if you have internal apps, you go through the same process where our rest of the base platform actually kicks in, and then we actually pull down all your internal apps, which there might not be any public MCP servers available, and you can deploy an MCP server based on that, right? Now, this is an endpoint that you can now start using. I mean, you can deploy it, Cloud Code. I mean, this is an MCP server endpoint that you can use in pretty much any agent out there, right? So in this case, we're going to deploy it for Claude, so we have a simple command line that can help you add that. So in this case, you're going to bring up the Claude. The moment you bring up the Claude, the first thing that you do, because you've added this MCP server, is authenticate yourself, right? Like, who are you? Because based on that, the MCP server is going to give you access to data and the tools that are available, right? So in this case, this user is authenticating. It is asking for the permissions, what it's going to access. That's it, right? Now the agent is assuming your identity with the subset of access that you have as a user available. So in this particular case, we're going to ask, think of it like a marketing agent, right? Or a sales agent, where I want to create a snippet for Cequence AI Gateway that I want to send it to let's say the CISO of city. Based on the SharePoint data that is available, can you create me a 2-paragraph email for that, right? So that's the prompt that we are giving it. So it's going to go search SharePoint it's also going to combine it with publicly available data. And this is just a view of SharePoint in there. And that's what it did, effectively. So getting access to your internal environment as a user, whatever this user had access to, right? Based on that, it was able to create a little snippet, and it combined with real-world data, right? And you can do this for any tool, any application that is out there, effectively, right? But we don't just stop there. We spoke about the day one and day two activities, right? Like, you can now track at a user level, right? What did this user really do, right? Based using that agent, right? You can see it was able to list sites, fetch the data, what all tools did that user actually use, right? And then you can see tool-level activities as well, right? And this is where our behavioral protection technology actually kicks in as well. When the agent goes rogue, right, we can actually detect and stop that abuse in real time, right? It's not about after the fact, but in real time you can detect and stop that abuse. So this is, while debugging, you can actually see the request responses, what data was exfiltrated in the debugging mode. In production mode, obviously, you can't see that. We just simply act on it. So this is a short demo. Obviously, there are a lot of details behind the scenes, but effectively, you will get access to this as part of the hackathon, where you can actually build your own setup. I'll just take your questions in a minute. I have just 1 or 2 slides to go through. Yeah, so we spoke about it, right? Like after the hackathon, obviously, our goal is you should be focused on building your agents, the problems that they're solving, not worry about connecting the data. We can help you do that, right? And the last part is, I think you can build up effectively enterprise-grade MCP servers using that platform, right? You can actually take it to your environment. You can even call it mcp.xyz.com, make it available to your customers, make it available to your partners. No servers to manage, no code to write, just plug and play authentication. So effectively, that's what this platform provides, right? With that, I think you can scan this QR code for signing up for this, and effectively you're going to use that for your hackathon as well, and we can approve that for you on the back end. Hopefully you like this. I'll open it up for questions if there are any. I know there was a question back there. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the great demo. I have 2 questions. One is basically, is Cequence honoring RBAC, as an example, role-based access right now, based on the specific settings from organization to organization, or even custom roles that people might create in like Microsoft or Google or whatever? Yeah,
so we do integrate with your actual identity provider. In fact, we partner with Descope to enable this for you as well, right? So you can give certain roles, certain permissions to certain MCP servers, and only those users will get access to it.
And that's in your platform where you, okay, great.
Yeah.
The other question is, APIs are constantly evolving. This is just general product question, nothing to do with the hackathon.
Yeah.
You know, every product is evolving every quarter or bi-weekly, whatever, right? Like, are you guys internally keeping up to the latest APIs that is hosted on MCP to synchronize the changes from?
We are. So that's how I started it, right? Like, Cequence was in the business of cataloging APIs continuously. It's not like a one-time thing, right? So as the APIs change, we see the deviations. We see new APIs getting added, old ones getting deprecated, and that gets translated into these MCP servers.
Ask really loudly.
Okay.
So in your demo, you connected to SharePoint, and you had the user authenticate.
Yes.
So the answers should respect like the user's permission.
That's correct.
But that doesn't take into consideration actual content, right? Like, I'm a marketing person, before AI, before MCP,
Yeah.
before Descope, there was a public SharePoint site I didn't know about. Now I can find it using these tools.
Yeah, so we don't address that. The assumption is whatever guardrails that you have put in for the enterprise user, right? Like you don't have access to marketing data, you don't have access to sales data. Same things will apply or a subset of it, right? You can say that I'm not allowed to write to it, you can read it, but we do give you that access, right? But we are not in that business, okay, was it accidentally shared or not?
I can also ask super loud. So you talked about like when it's authenticated, and you talked a little bit about how it can like notify you in real time if there's like an attack. Because I guess the gap is if you're authenticated and then someone like, for example, your SharePoint puts a prompt injection
Yes.
document or something, how are you guys detecting that and then stopping that?
Yeah. So behavioral detection and protection goes to our roots, right? So that's what Cequence has been doing for many, many years now, right? The same, and this technology is actually, it does really, really well for detecting bots, right? So and agents are bots, right? So the same behavioral technologies roots apply here, right? So we can see deviations in patterns, access patterns, behaviors, success, fail, all of that come together effectively to detect these kinds of things. I think it's time, right? All right, thank you.